Think about the last thing you bought that felt urgent in the store and meaningless by the time you got home. The standard explanation is that you lacked discipline. But what if discipline was never actually the variable? The dominant story about overspending is a moral one, dressed up in the language of personal finance. You spend too much because you haven't built the right habits. You don't track your expenses. You give in to impulses instead of following a budget. The solution in this framework is always the same: more structure, more willpower, better systems, apps, spreadsheets, the 50-30-20 rule. And to be fair, that story isn't wrong exactly. Financial literacy does matter. Tracking spending does help some people. Knowing where your money goes is genuinely useful information, but there's a problem with the framework underneath it. It assumes that spending decisions are primarily rational acts, that when you overspend, something in your reasoning process failed, that the fix, therefore, is more reasoning, better reasoning, more disciplined reasoning. What the research increasingly suggests is that a significant portion of spending behavior isn't happening in the reasoning layer at all. It's happening in a much older system, one that doesn't process spreadsheets, one that processes threat. And when that system is running, it isn't asking whether the purchase makes sense. It's asking whether you feel safe. Those are not the same question, and confusing them has a real cost, not just financially, but in terms of why the usual fixes keep not working. Here's where it gets interesting and a little uncomfortable. The brain has a system dedicated to anticipating bad outcomes, not experiencing them, anticipating them. And that system is wired, at a very deep level, to seek relief, to find something, anything, that signals the threat is passing. Research on aversive anticipation has shown that the brain's electrocortical responses during threat expectation look remarkably similar to the responses triggered when a reward arrives and then disappears. The brain, in other words, doesn't cleanly separate "I'm afraid something bad is coming" from "I just lost something good." Both register as a kind of alarm. Both generate the same downstream pressure. Do something to make this stop. Now apply that to your financial life. Financial insecurity, even mild background financial anxiety, is a low-grade threat signal running almost continuously for a lot of people. The account balance that's lower than you'd like, the bill that's coming, the vague sense that you're behind where you're supposed to be. That signal doesn't stay in the abstract. It creates anticipatory discomfort. And the brain, doing exactly what it was designed to do, starts looking for relief. Here's the cruel irony. Spending often provides that relief. Not because the purchase solves the financial problem, it usually makes it worse, but because the act of acquisition temporarily mimics the neural signature of safety. You made a choice, you acted, the discomfort recedes for a moment. This is the confusion at the center of the problem. The brain experiences financial anxiety as a threat. It experiences spending as relief from threat, and it draws the obvious, catastrophically wrong conclusion: spending equals safety. The evolutionary biologist would recognize this immediately. This is 200,000-year-old hardware. In the environment where that hardware was built, acquiring resources when you were anxious about scarcity was often exactly the right move. The mismatch isn't a flaw in your character. It's a lag between what the brain evolved to do and the world it's now doing it in. Let's be specific about what the evidence actually shows and where it stops. A 2022 study published in a behavioral neuroscience journal examined how aversive anticipation, the experience of expecting something bad, alters the brain's decision-making and reward processing signals. Using EEG, the researchers measured electrocortical activity while participants navigated reward tasks under threat conditions. What they found was that aversive anticipation measurably changed the brain's reward reversal learning signals. The signals involved in updating behavior when outcomes shift. In plain language, when you're braced for something bad, your brain processes reward and loss differently. Your ability to accurately update your expectations based on new information is altered. The threat state doesn't just make you feel worse, it changes the computational process. Now, an important caveat: that study measured electrocortical correlates, EEG signals, as a proxy for subjective experience. The gap between a brain signal and what a person actually feels remains genuinely difficult to close. The researchers found changes in neural signatures, not direct evidence of internal experience. That distinction matters. We should hold it. Separately, a 2019 review on dopamine and effort found that dopamine isn't simply a reward signal, it's deeply involved in the motivation to exert effort toward a goal. What's relevant here is the inverse. Low dopaminergic tone is associated with reduced motivation and, critically, with a bias toward low-effort actions. What's Bacto dopamine pathway diagram, minimalist, emphasizing the midbrain to cortex route. Spending is, neurologically speaking, a low-effort action that produces a fast signal. It is precisely the kind of behavior a reward-depleted, threat-anticipating brain will reach for. Not because you're weak, because that's what the system is optimized to do under those conditions. A 2009 study examining dopamine's role in sensory decision-making found that dopaminergic reward signals directly influence how the brain weights and commits to decisions, even in domains far removed from finance. The reward system isn't quarantined to clearly reward-related decisions. It bleeds into everything. Brain scan cross-section highlighting reward pathway regions in warm amber tones, clean and non-sensationalized. There's also relevant work on how the brain adapts its decision rules when environments feel unpredictable. Research from 2022 on normative decision-making in changing environments found that brains recalibrate their probability estimates and action thresholds based on perceived environmental stability. When the environment feels volatile, financially volatile, say, the brain adjusts its thresholds. It becomes more reactive, more likely to act on partial information. Put these pieces together and a picture emerges. Not a complete picture. The research doesn't give us a clean causal chain from financial anxiety to overspending with every link verified. But it gives us a plausible mechanism, a reason why the problem is so resistant to purely rational interventions. The behavior isn't primarily emerging from the rational layer. It's emerging from below it. What the evidence does not prove is that willpower is irrelevant, or that conscious intervention never works. It clearly can, but the evidence does suggest that interventions aimed only at the reasoning layer, better budgets, more tracking, may be addressing the symptom while the underlying signal keeps running. So what do you do with this? Not a checklist, a reframe. If you've tried budgeting and it didn't stick, if you've tracked your spending for 3 weeks and then quietly stopped, the standard interpretation is that you failed. You weren't disciplined enough. You need to try harder. One alternative interpretation: the behavior you're trying to change is downstream of a threat signal, and no amount of spreadsheet discipline switches off a threat signal. You were solving the wrong problem. The Taoist framing is worth sitting with here. There's a concept, Wu Wei, non-forcing, that suggests the harder you fight a current, the more energy you give it. Understanding the current is different from fighting it. If every time you feel financial anxiety you suppress the urge to spend through willpower alone, you're in a constant fight with a signal that doesn't get tired. You do. What changes things, for some people, is noticing the signal before the behavior, not judging it, not suppressing it, just recognizing, this is a threat response. My brain thinks buying something will make me safer. It won't. That pause, that moment of accurate labeling, may do more than any budget app, because it's operating at the right level of the system. You might also notice that your spending patterns don't track your actual financial stress as cleanly as the discipline model predicts. Sometimes people spend more when things are going reasonably well, and sometimes they freeze when things are worst. That asymmetry is exactly what you'd expect from a threat anticipation system that's reading emotional signals, not bank statements. Here's where the honest tension lives. Even if this mechanism is real, even if financial anxiety genuinely does hijack the reward system and produce spending as pseudo-relief, it's not clear that knowing this changes behavior in any reliable, generalizable way. The research on self-awareness as an intervention is mixed. Insight doesn't automatically translate to change. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it just means you watch yourself do the thing anyway. And there's a version of this framing that becomes its own trap, using neuroscience as an explanation that quietly becomes an excuse. My brain is doing this can be true and still not be the whole story. So the question this leaves open, the one worth sitting with, is not how do I fix this? It's something harder. If the behavior is partly a response to a feeling of scarcity and threat, what would it actually mean to feel less threatened? Not just to act differently, to actually feel differently. That's a much slower project, and a much more honest one. The research behind this video draws from Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience, Trends in Neurosciences, PLOS Biology, Psychology of Sport and Exercise, eLife. Every claim traces to a published source. Full citations are in the description below. If the way this channel thinks about neuroscience resonates with you, subscribing helps this work reach people who'd appreciate it. New videos on the science of mind,